If you clicked on this video, it's no coincidence. The exhaustion you feel now, that weight in your bones that even sleep doesn't relieve, isn't just tiredness. It's an emergency call. In the ancient mystery schools, Thoth taught that this collapse is actually a seal of choice, a sign that your soul has become too big for the small life you've been leading. But beware, there's a hidden reason you're feeling this way. There's a silent thief operating within your mind right now, draining your vitality drop by drop. And if you don't discover who it is in the next few minutes, this exhaustion could become permanent. I'm going to give you the exact code to deactivate this drain and reveal the final secret that most people ignore and continue to suffer. You were chosen to hear this, so don't waste this chance. To confirm you're ready to receive this message, comment below. I accept the call. We need to be willing to let go of the life we planned in order to have the life that awaits us. The fatigue weighing on your eyelids now is not a matter of chance, nor merely the result of long days and sleepless nights, but a profound sign you need to decipher. In ancient traditions that revered Thoth, the divine scribe, the human body was understood to be a living scroll where the soul records its most urgent and immediate needs. What you call extreme tiredness is, in fact, a sophisticated spiritual defense mechanism activated to prevent you from continuing down a path that no longer serves you. It's as if the universe has pulled the handbrake on your life because the speed was too high for the wrong direction, and the impact would be fatal to your purpose if you continued accelerating unconsciously. You've been trying to resolve this exhaustion with physical rest, sleeping more hours, or taking vitamins, but you realize that sleep doesn't solve the problem, and the feeling of heaviness persists. This happens because the drain you feel isn't muscular or chemical. It's vibrational and occurs at a level that conventional medicine ignores. You wake up feeling like you've already run a marathon, even without getting out of bed, because your energy is leaking through invisible holes in your aura. It's a hemorrhage of vitality that occurs silently while you try to maintain your normal routine, pretending everything is fine for the outside world. You've reached a point of saturation where the old way of operating has completely collapsed, and nothing that worked before seems to have any effect now. The old tactics of motivation, of forcing yourself to work, of procrastinating, have simply stopped working because your internal operating system has deliberately locked up. Trying to restart the system with coffee or stimulants won't help, because the problem isn't a lack of fuel, but rather an engine that refuses to keep spinning. Your soul has gone on strike and decided it will no longer cooperate with the lifestyle that ignores your true essence. And although it seems like the end of the line, this system shutdown is, paradoxically, the most important vital sign you've received in recent years. It indicates that there's still a part of you that refuses to give up on who you truly are. A part that prefers to stop everything rather than let you get completely lost. It's an act of self-love disguised as a collapse, an emergency intervention made by your own spiritual intelligence. Thoth would say that the scribe stopped writing the false story so that the true one could begin to be dictated, but for that, the page needs to remain blank for a while. The silence that comes with this exhaustion is deafening because it forces you to listen to what you've spent years ignoring with noise and distractions. Something inside you is desperate to be heard, screaming through apathy and discouragement, begging for a change of course that you're afraid to make. This inner voice has been muffled by so many layers of obligations and fears that the only way it can get your attention is by switching off the circuit breakers of your physical energy. You are being forced to stop, to look inward, and to face the emptiness you have avoided for so long. But to decipher this message and escape this state of paralysis, it's not enough to simply rest your physical body. You need to conduct an internal investigation to discover exactly where your energy is being stolen day after day. There is a hidden culprit, a sabotaging agent living within your own mind that has been draining your life force without you realizing it. To reclaim your life, you first need to identify this silent thief who has been stealing your vital energy and who disguises himself very well among your daily habits. Modern society has trained us from birth to be consummate actors on an endless stage, where there are no intermissions and the audience never leaves. We construct what psychologists call a persona and what the ancient sages of Egypt called a funerary mask, a rigid golden layer that hides our true face. You have been conditioned to believe through constant repetition at school, at work, and in the media that being strong, unwavering, and productive was the non-negotiable price of love and belonging. The idea was created that, to be accepted, you needed to edit who you were, cutting out the ugly parts and enlarging the acceptable parts. For years on end, you invested a colossal amount of psychic energy just to keep this artificial structure standing, like a theater set about to collapse. You smiled in meetings when you wanted to cry in frustration, agreed with absurd opinions when you wanted to shout your truth, and said yes when every cell in your body begged for a no. Each of these small acts of self-betrayal was taking a hefty toll on your energy bank account. You didn't realize it, but you were paying compound interest on an emotional debt that never stopped growing. Maintaining appearances is the true vampire of your vitality, sucking your life force much faster than any heavy physical work could. Thoth, he who weighs the heart on the scales of truth against the feather of Mart, knows that nothing in the universe weighs more than a lie lived daily. Carrying an identity that is not yours is like walking on the bottom of a river with stones in your pockets. The effort to simply stay afloat consumes all the available oxygen. The lightness of life disappears because all your strength is used only to sustain the illusion that you are who others expect you to be. Exhaustion inevitably arises because the distance between who you truly are in the silence of your room and who you pretend to be for the world has become an unsustainable abyss. This rift in your integrity creates constant tension, a background noise that never allows your nervous system to truly relax. It's an internal civil war where the diplomat and the rebel fight for control, and the battlefield is your tired body. You're not exhausted because you did too many things. You're exhausted because you were too little of yourself while doing them. But now, something has changed in the chemistry of this performance. The mask has begun to visibly crack, and the social glue that held it together has lost its effectiveness. The forced smiles no longer convince, the patience to feign interest has run out, and the desire to comply with social protocols has disappeared. The universe is dismantling your ability to lie to yourself, taking away the energy needed to maintain the charade. This is not a flaw, it is a forced liberation, although it seems frightening to feel the icy wind of truth touching your exposed skin for the first time in years. The fear you feel now, that tightness in your chest that won't go away, isn't from the exhaustion itself, but from what comes next. It's the terror of becoming vulnerable, of losing control over how others see you. You fear what will happen when that golden shield completely crumbles and reveals what you've locked away so tightly. There's something hidden, something you deemed unacceptable, waiting in the basement of your mind for so long, and now the door is about to be opened. The journey through the inner underworld. When the mask finally falls and shatters on the ground, the first thing we encounter is not the redeeming light, but the density of the shadow. This is the crucial moment when most people give up on the journey, mistaking this necessary encounter for depression, failure, or madness, when in fact it is a mandatory step in the alchemy of the soul. Formerly known as nigredo, it is the phase of darkening and decay where everything false must rot, so that the true can emerge. You haven't fallen into a hole. You've entered a transformation chamber that seems dark only because your eyes are still accustomed to the artificial light of appearances. You are being invited, perhaps dragged, into your own underworld, your personal and non-transferable duat. It is in this place, far from the approving gaze of society, that your uncried sorrows reside, your angers swallowed to avoid conflict, and your desires repressed by shame. They haven't disappeared just because you stopped looking at them. They grew in the darkness, gaining strength and density. Every emotion you denied has become an inhabitant of this underworld, and now they demand an audience, demand to be seen and acknowledged as legitimate parts of your story. Escaping these emotions by trying to distract yourself with social media, food, or excessive work is exactly what consumes the rest of your already nearly depleted energy. It's a tremendous effort to keep the basement door closed while monsters are banging on the other side wanting to get out. Facing them, looking your anger and pain in the eye, is the only real way to recharge your vitality. The energy you spend on repression is the same energy you need for creation. By releasing repression, you release the stagnant flow of life. The solar boat of your consciousness can only be born on the eastern horizon, bringing a new dawn after crossing the total darkness of the 12 hours of the night. There are no shortcuts, no skipping the difficult phase in the authentic spiritual journey. You need to navigate the dark waters of your own psyche, feeling the discomfort, the shame, and the fear without identifying with them, just observing. You are not sick, broken, or defective. You are in transit, in a sacred migration from a lesser version of yourself to an expanded version. The shadow doesn't want to destroy you, even though it may seem threatening at first glance with its sharp teeth of guilt and resentment. It wants to be integrated. It wants to come home because it carries the raw, potent energy you desperately need for the next phase of your life. Integrated anger becomes the force of action. Integrated sadness becomes depth and compassion. Integrated fear becomes prudence and wisdom. Everything in the dark is fuel waiting to be refined by the light of your conscious attention. But to achieve this integration and transform lead into gold, you will have to make a difficult sacrifice. You cannot take everything with you to the other side. To integrate this raw power that the shadow offers, you will have to voluntarily relinquish the most dangerous, seductive, and exhausting mental addiction that humanity has developed and that you use as a crutch every day. The greatest source of human fatigue, the one that truly ages the soul and bends the spine, is not the volume of work, but the persistent illusion of control. You have spent your entire life trying to predict the future, drawing up mental scenarios to avoid risks and manipulating outcomes to ensure security. You acted like a frightened little god, believing that if you were vigilant enough, you could hold back the Nile's current with your own hands and prevent the waters from following their natural course. This attempt to tame life is a battle lost before it even begins, but you fought bravely until you collapsed in exhaustion. This hypervigilance keeps your nervous system in a constant corrosive state of red alert. As if a tiger were always lurking, you burn out your neural circuits in a futile attempt to tame the chaos inherent in existence, analyzing micro-expressions, tones of voice, and catastrophic probabilities. The brain expends an absurd amount of glucose and electrical energy just calculating variables that are, in fact, completely beyond its control. It's the weight of trying to hold up the ceiling so it doesn't collapse on your head, without realizing that the ceiling is supporting itself. The archetype of Thoth, with its ancient wisdom, teaches that mastery lies not in controlling the direction of the wind, but in knowing how to adjust the sails when it changes. The master does not fight the storm, he uses it to navigate. Exhaustion has arrived in your life not as a punishment, but as a mercy to force your hands to open and release the rudder. You only let go of control when you no longer have the muscular or mental strength to hold on. And that is precisely when the magic begins to happen. It's a necessary surrender, an "I give up" that's not a sign of weakness, but of supreme lucidity. You finally admit that you're too small to manage the universe and that perhaps you don't need to. Life has an autonomous intelligence, biological and cosmic, a rhythm that ignores your spreadsheet plans and your arbitrary deadlines. Your heart beats without your command. The planet spins without your permission. The seasons change without your approval. You are part of the process, not its manager. By trying to swim against this powerful current, wanting things to be different than they are, you drown in your own effort and drink the bitter water of frustration. But by floating, by relaxing your muscles and trusting the physics of the water, you are easily carried to where you need to go. The current knows the way to the ocean much better than you do, and it always wins in the end. Resistance is what causes suffering. Fluidity is what brings peace. And it is precisely at the moment when you stop fighting against reality, when your arms fall to your sides and you say, "Whatever will be, that the scenario changes. In that instant of total surrender, you discover a secret space, a clearing in the middle of the dark forest where regeneration happens. It's a place you've never seen because you were too busy trying to hold the world on your shoulders. The incubation chamber of silence. By letting go of control and ceasing to row against the tide, you are immediately launched into the vacuum of silence. This is a place that the modern mind, addicted to dopamine and constant noise, fears more than physical death itself. Silence seems empty. It seems like absence. It seems like the end of existence for an ego that only knows how to define itself through action and noise. However, for the initiate into the mysteries, silence is not the absence of sound or life, but the massive presence of power in a potential state. It is in absolute stillness. When thoughts slow down and anxiety finds no fuel, that the soul performs its most delicate psychic surgery. A profound repair process takes place that can only happen when the patient is motionless on the operating table. While you think you're doing nothing and terribly blame yourself for being unproductive, Your unconscious is working at full speed behind the scenes. It is frantically clearing emotional debris, rearranging traumatic memories, and stitching together the tissues of your psyche that have been torn apart by chronic stress. This is the sacred incubation state, the inner temple where Thoth works in the dark, far from the spotlight of intellect. Just as the seed needs the darkness and stillness of the soil to germinate, you need this period of non-action to be reborn. The peace you desperately seek in travel, shopping, or relationships cannot be hunted or conquered outside. It is the natural residue left over when the turbulence of the ego ceases. It is what remains when you stop stirring the lake water and the mud settles to the bottom. You need to trust the intelligence of your own body and spirit to heal in the dark, without the interference of your analytical mind that wants to understand and control the process. Healing doesn't follow a logical timeline and doesn't deliver progress reports. It's organic, cyclical, and mysterious. Accepting not knowing what's happening, accepting being in the cocoon without seeing the wings, is the highest act of faith you can offer yourself at this moment. But this emptiness can be dizzying, causing existential dizziness in those who have spent their lives leaning on external crutches. The sensation of freefall, of having nothing to hold on to, can make you want to run back to the noise and familiar exhaustion. To avoid getting lost in this abyss and panicking, it's necessary to relearn how to focus your vision. You need to start looking at the world not with the tired eyes of a worried adult, but with a vision that was forgotten in childhood and that changes everything. When life's grand purposes seem too heavy to bear, and the future is an impenetrable fog that only breeds anxiety, the cure lies in a radical return to the infinitely small. The macrocosm, in all its complexity, is perfectly reflected in the microcosm of the present moment. Your soul is not hungry for great achievements, awards, or public recognition. It is hungry for small anchors of sensory reality that bring it back home. It wants to feel alive here and now, not in some hypothetical future of success. Turn your attention to the exact warmth of a cup of tea between your hands. Feel the temperature transferring to your skin. Observe the rough or soft texture of your clothing, the play of light and shadow the sun makes on the wall in the afternoon, the distant sound of a bird or traffic. These minutiae, which you ignored for years in your rush to get somewhere, are actually the sutures that connect the spirit back to the body. They are the hooks that prevent you from floating away in the storm of your thoughts. Exhaustion is, in essence, a violent disconnection from the senses. You have lived so long in the projective mind, calculating, fearing, and planning, that you have forgotten the fundamental support of matter. You have become a ghost inhabiting a machine, disconnected from the simple pleasure of physically existing. Returning to feeling the simple, the banal, the ordinary, is the most advanced and accessible therapy that exists. It is the immediate antidote to the poison of mental abstraction that creates problems that do not exist in the present moment. It is in these fragments of absolute presence that the sacred geometry of life reveals itself unfiltered. You realize that in this very second, as you breathe and feel the ground beneath your feet, there is no problem at all. The problem only exists in the memory of the past or in the projection of the future. The now is always bearable, always alive, and always new. Showing yourself that you are still alive and connected through your senses is an act of rebellion against the matrix of anxiety. And by focusing on the small things, by dedicating your full attention to washing dishes or walking to the corner, you inadvertently trigger a powerful universal law. You shift the frequency of your vibration from lack and fear to presence and gratitude. This completely alters the physics of how your life unfolds, because the universe responds to your vibration, not your mental desires. And this shift in frequency attracts a revelation about who you are that was hidden beneath the tiredness. The revelation of the chosen one. Herein lies the profound secret your soul already suspected, but which your rational mind was afraid to admit because it seemed too grand. This overwhelming exhaustion is not for everyone. It is not a statistical accident, a flaw in your biology, or a mistake along the way. It is the unmistakable mark of a specific calling, a seal of Thoth reserved only for those who are ready to graduate to a higher level of consciousness in this life. You are not tired because you are weak, incompetent, or unable to cope with reality. You are tired because your soul has grown too large and become too energetically big for the small, cramped life you built years ago. It's like trying to keep a giant oak tree inside a flower pot. The old structure can no longer support the expansion of its roots, and collapse is the only possible outcome. The universe, in its infinite and relentless wisdom, allowed you to reach this point of breakdown and desolation because it is the only effective way to dissolve the old shell that holds back your gigantic potential. Human nature seeks comfort and stability at any cost, and if you were comfortable, you would continue sleeping in illusion, satisfied with mediocrity. If things were going more or less right, if money were sufficient and relationships were merely lukewarm, you would never seek the extraordinary that you are destined to experience. Acute pain and chronic fatigue are the necessary birthing tools for the birth of your new self. Without this pressure, the shell would never break. You are not being punished for past mistakes, nor are you paying for negative karma. You are being polished under extreme pressure to become a diamond, a physical process that requires heat and crushing. Coal only transforms into the most precious stone in the world when it has nowhere to escape the pressure, and that is exactly where you are. You were chosen, energetically selected from among many to undergo the initiation of exhaustion, an ancient and sacred rite of passage that the masters knew well. In this rite, the universe violently removes everything that is superfluous, everything that is ego, everything that is falsehood, so that only the essential and the true remain. It is an intense spiritual distillation process where your life is placed on fire so that impurities evaporate, leaving only the gold of your essence. Exhaustion acts as a stern and uncompromising gatekeeper, barring the ego from entering the new reality, clearly stating you cannot pass with this heavy baggage. It prevents you from dragging your old fears, unresolved traumas, and social masks into the new cycle. If you had energy now, you would use that force to maintain your old destructive habits. Therefore, energy has been temporarily taken from you to prevent you from rebuilding the prison you are trying to escape. You are being prepared not for the end of your life, as despair tries to convince you, but to assume a new role in existence, much more aligned with who you truly are in spirit. The world is full of copies, of people living pre-written scripts, and you are being trained to be an original, a bearer of light who lives with radical authenticity. But this spiritual promotion has a high price that not everyone is willing to pay. To accept this mantle and enter this new phase, You need to leave behind the need to be understood and approved by others. The purpose of an awakened one is not to be popular, but to be real, and exhaustion is burning away your ability to pretend to please the audience. You are being recalibrated to operate at a much higher frequency, and this downgrade of physical energy is actually a system upgrade happening behind the scenes. During this upgrade, the computer needs to be restarted and remain inoperable for a while. Trying to force it to work during the installation of the new software would only cause permanent damage to the hardware. You need to trust that when the system comes back, it will be incomparably faster and more efficient. To accept this destiny and enter this new phase, something within you, something you are very attached to, needs to die definitively now. There is no negotiating with the law of evolution. For the new to enter, the old must leave completely, without leaving any residue. You must be willing to sacrifice the idea of who you thought you were, your rigid plans, and your expectations of how life should be. The universe is asking you for everything that is false in exchange for everything that is real. And although it seems like a daunting trade at the moment, it is the best deal you will ever make in your entire existence. This exhaustion proves that you can no longer vibrate at the frequency of lies, and your body is rejecting falsehood as if it were a virus. The people around you may not understand. They may judge your laziness or your depression, but they are not going through the initiation you are. Don't expect validation from those still asleep in the matrix. They cannot see the invisible and monumental work you are doing internally. You are building the foundations of a cathedral while everyone looks and sees only a barren plot surrounded by fences. The call of Thoth is an invitation to mastery, and mastery requires the apprentice to release the childish tools they used to manipulate reality. You are learning to manipulate energy, not matter, and this requires a different kind of strength, a strength born from stillness, not frantic movement. Accept that you were chosen for this not because you are unlucky, but because you possess the robust spiritual structure necessary to withstand the transformation. The caterpillar may think the world is ending when it enters the cocoon and completely disintegrates. But what it calls the end, the master calls a butterfly. What you feel agonizing inside your chest, that end of the world sensation, isn't you dying. It's your ego. It's that mental construct you've nurtured for decades that's screaming, kicking, and generating panic because it knows it's lost control of the ship. The ego is an excellent servant, but a terrible master, and it's being forcibly dethroned. This feeling of imminent death or profound existential emptiness is the classic and necessary symptom of the dissolution of the constructed identity. Thoth, the guide of souls through the duat, patiently observes as the false self disintegrates, knowing that this is absolutely necessary so that the true self, the eternal self, can finally assume the throne of your life. You are being stripped, layer by layer, of your vanities, your childish needs for external approval, and your defenses that no longer protect anything. It is like a snake shedding its skin. The process is uncomfortable, leaves the creature vulnerable and temporarily blind, but it is vital for growth. It's a painful process, yes, let's not romanticize the pain, but it's also profoundly liberating. Imagine no longer having to pretend, no longer having to prove anything, no longer having to maintain an image. The exhaustion acted like a controlled burn that consumed the dead forest of your conditioned personality. Now, the ground is clear, covered in fertile ashes, ready for the seed of your true essence to breathe.